There are no deals in insurance. You get what you pay for. This video is going to be a lot less about the mechanics of insurance, the company, a policy you might have, and a lot more about mindset. How we act and how we perceive, what we're doing with our finances. You get what you pay for. There's people out there, a lot of people out there, they're just looking for the cheapest price for anything, not just investments or insurance, but the cheapest price for their furniture in their house. Okay, the food they eat and things like that, and that's okay to some degree, right? We want to make sure we're paying a low price, a fair price. We don't want to overspend or needlessly spend on things. But if that's just the default mindset for every aspect of our spending, and our investing and so on, I would say that's a low frequency way to live. So that's a low frequency way to live. Think about it. Wouldn't that decrease humanity? And if everyone was out there looking for the lowest price, every single person's out there only looking for the lowest price. They're never looking for quality. Then we don't have nice things. And again, it's good to have affordable things. Then you have more money for other things. But maybe it's good to pick and choose the things that you'd like to splurge on and spend your money on. And then pick a couple things where it's like, hey, I couldn't care less about this. Just give me the cheapest price. I know I need it. Just give me the cheapest price. But you got to pick wisely about what those things are. I would say, instead of focusing so much on, let me just pay the lowest price for everything, wouldn't it be better to just make more money and invest into assets and build assets that can pay for your stuff? That's what wealthy folks are doing, or even people that are on their way to wealth. They're not only looking at fees and costs and the lowest price. They're looking at quality. They're looking at how can they increase their income, increase their assets, especially assets, so that their assets can pay for their stuff. We wonder all the time, how are these people able to afford all these things? It's not necessarily because of their income. I mean, it's the more money you make, the higher tax bracket you enter into. So it's not necessarily income, although it can be that. It's assets too. So you got to build the assets. The assets compound. They produce interest. They produce their own income, and then you can use that to fund the things that you want to do. And then maybe use your income to fund the things that you need right now, the needs, and pay the basic bills. No, and then if you're paying the cheapest price, think about this: it can only get so cheap before that's just the price that you have to pay, because there's a cost for the product, right? So it can only get so cheap, and then when you're looking at your budget, your cost of the things that you need can only get so low before it's like, hey, you really just need to make more money so that you can afford quality things. If a business is running it and marketing on being cheap, is that really a good business after all? If their main line is, hey, we're cheap, that's not really. You're basically saying, hey, there's nothing else to our product really. It's just that we're cheap. Now, again, there are some companies who their niche market, or the way they model their business, is affordable prices. That's their main strategy. But that's not solely what they do. Maybe they pick the right location to have the brick and mortar business. Maybe they make it really efficient so they can scale it, and then have a ton of different products. So you could, like Walmart. They have low prices. I mean, I remember I was a kid, they had the commercials that said always low prices, and all the rollback commercials. If you're a millennial, or maybe Gen X, the generation before millennial, Gen X, you remember the commercials, rollbacks, always low prices. That's a model, but that's not the only thing Walmart is doing. There, you can also buy a lot of products at one time, and a lot of different products. It's not only a grocery store or only a technology products that you can buy. So it's a convenient way to get so many different things you need. But if you're only running on price, then it's not really going to go very far. Here's an example. I got this candle right here. So I bought this candle from a specific person I know, and smells very nice. It's mango coconut candle. She only sells candles. I mean, if she sells other things, I don't know that. So it's not Walmart where I can buy candles and and a bunch of other things. It's just candles, right? So if she just says, "Hey, they're cheap," then it's kind of like, okay, if that's the only fund criteria you're giving me, well, maybe I can find something cheaper somewhere else. That also kind of tells me that there might not be much else to the candle. Maybe it smells terrible, right? If it's cheap and that's the only thing she could tell me, well, I'm sure that if it smells really good and it's made with like quality wax or something, she would have told me that too, right? But she's only telling me it's cheap. But so that's not what happened. It's they smell great. It's made with great wax. It's a really nice candle, and that's why I like to buy these candles. But I'm not buying them just because they're cheap. I'm buying them because of the quality of the product. And that's something I choose. Again, hey, for some people it's shoes, for some people it's candles, for some people it's food. They want to get really healthy food, really good organic food, whatever. It's you pick your thing. Pick your thing. But if it's everywhere, always looking for the lowest price, I think that's a low frequency lifestyle. There's people out there always searching for a deal. The people out there who are always searching for a deal, these are the same people who, at the end of it all, they don't really understand what they bought. I mean, if it's something really simple, like they bought, a candle, okay, they understand they bought a candle. But if it's something a little bit more complex, like a house or a car or an investment or an insurance policy, and they're looking for cheap, 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 just pay the lowest price possible, they end up not really understanding what they bought anyway, and then later on they have all these questions, long after the fact, like, wait, why is it doing this? Why is it that? Why did the price go up? Why did this benefit go away? They didn't ask all those questions up front. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't ask. Maybe they don't ask the right questions, because all they cared about in the beginning was just getting a good deal. They cared about their monthly expense. All they cared about is their monthly. And just, how much money am I going to have left over at the end of the month? Not what am I actually getting for what I paid for. There's no deal. You get what you pay for. So they're only thinking about what they pay for, not what they got. And then they get mad about it too. The people that don't stress about price, they usually don't get mad later on because they ask the right questions in the beginning. And then it's also not their fault. It's the company's fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's their parents' fault for not teaching them something when they didn't when they grew up. It's their it's the government's fault. It's never their fault either. It's always blamed on somebody else. Usually the company, usually the broker or the agent or whoever who sold it to them, and then they feel jaded, right? These are people who feel jaded about life. They're cynical. And they always think everyone's a scammer, everyone's a con artist, and everyone's out here just, they're making a buck in, unethical ways, right? These are the people who think that that business owners and entrepreneurs and these big companies are unethical and doing bad business practice. So, and all that, whether they realize it or not, hopefully they do. I realize that they actually did want more than just a deal after all. They wanted a whole lot more than a deal. Because if they didn't want more than just a deal, they wouldn't get mad about all the other stuff later on. So, a good question to ask yourself is, do you have an abundance mindset or do you have a scarcity mindset? Are you thinking about all the possibilities around you, or are you thinking about all the lack around you? The economy runs on quality and value, not on not on price. The price is just a the price is just a byproduct of the value and the quality that's happening in the economy. Um, now, now, all that being said, yeah, most people, most a lot of people are looking for a deal, but most of those people and people that aren't necessarily just looking for a deal, we just don't want to get scammed. We don't want to get taken advantage of. We want to make sure we're paying a fair price. So there is some merit to it. Um, but these people also make they also make the worst customers. They reschedule meetings or don't show up to them. They want to schedule a meeting really far out or like tomorrow, and then they you never hear from them, and then all of a sudden they want to meet tomorrow because there's a problem, and then maybe they don't even do anything to fix the problem when you actually meet with them, because it's like the boy who cried wolf sometimes, if you know that story. If you try to call them, they don't get back to you. If you don't call them, they get mad that you're not reaching out. They make the worst clients. I mean, it goes back and forth. They don't give referrals, or if they do give referrals, it's the same kinds of referrals as them. With these people with the same bad habits, the same bad mindset. They don't respect your time or your expertise. They treat you like a menu. They treat you, and what I mean by that is, um, if let's say you're running a business, or you're a cashier, not a cashier, you're a waiter at a restaurant. They treat you like the menu, right? They look at you and say, well, what happens if I do this? I don't want that. Well, what if I do that? I don't want that. They don't ask for your advice and your guidance and your expertise. They want to do their own planning instead of letting the planner, if we're talking about investments, insurance, or if we're talking about fee for advice, they don't want someone else to plan for them and to admit that they don't really know what they're doing, and they don't think they need the planning anyway, because they're just looking for the lowest price. So they're just trying to push buttons to find out, okay, what's going to happen if I do, well, what if I do this? Is this the cheapest one? Oh, okay, yeah. And then they're shopping you. They're shopping around. So it's not a pleasant experience. Top clients, top customers, and top consumers. These are people who they they're not getting price gouged. Okay, they care about price, but they care about they care about learning and understanding what they're agreeing to and what they're getting into before they make the decision, including the price. They show up to meetings. They show up on time. They let you know if they need to reschedule very soon in advance, or as soon as possible in advance. Um, and they ask the right questions. They're willing to receive questions from the seller, from the business. They're willing to get that guidance. They're willing to delegate and to admit that they might not know exactly what they're buying just yet, um, and they want to learn. So so you get what you pay for, but you also get what you save for. You get what you save for, and it's pretty obvious. But if you're not saving, investing, you're not gonna you're not gonna get ahead. It's gonna be hand to mouth for the rest of your life if you're not saving or investing or anything. So these are people who are always looking at price, where like price is the end all be all. The scarcity mindset. These are people who threw all their money away at today, to not have anything tomorrow, and have nothing saved for tomorrow, for old age, for an inheritance, or their legacy, someone else's inheritance. They throw all their money at today, and they have nothing saved for tomorrow. And then again, they wonder later on whose fault it is. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's mine, right? They're always wondering, well, the government told me that I'd be okay. Well, my parents told me that I'd be okay. My big brother, my wife, my husband told me I'd be okay, right? But it's never their fault, though. It's never their fault. And then they become a burden to their family. And then you get the customers, you get the clients who come in, the children of that person. The children of that person come in, and it's very sad to get this, but the children of that person come in and they say, I it's really uncomfortable to say this, but I really don't want to end up like my mom or like my dad or my uncle or my big brother or whoever, usually parents. I don't want to end up like my parents and be a burden. And we saw, or I saw what my mom had to go through to take care of my granddad or my grandma who didn't have any long-term care or retirement or anything like that. They bought a house that was way too big, and we saw what they had to go through. And I just don't want my kids to have to go through that dealing with me. So I want to make sure I get taken care of. And that's wise. That's wise. Those customers tend to be pretty good because they see something, and this is wisdom. A smart person learns from their mistakes, right? A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. I think that's the saying. I think there's a Bible verse or maybe a proverb or something that says a wise man sees trouble somewhere else and turns the other way, and a foolish man walks right into it with no regard. So, you the people are always looking at price. They have tunnel vision. They're just looking at their own price. They don't look at other people looking at the lowest price or trying to get all the lowest price and seeing what trouble they're running into. They're just looking at their own situation like, I've got to have the lowest price. Now, again, look, if you're paycheck to paycheck, life is hard and you got to just get the lowest price on some things or even cut things out entirely. Hey, do what you need. But if you got a little bit of money, pick a couple things that are really important and make sure you got a good plan. It's so important to get a good plan, because I would say, I said this in another video, but I would say it again here. Nothing matters until it matters. And then that's all that matters. So with retirement, by the way, it's is a weird saying. See how this lands. It's called retirement, not requirement. So you don't need to retire. So there's people out there who they've amassed a lot of wealth. They can afford to retire and just replace their income through assets. Hey, that's fine. If they want to retire, great. If they want to keep working, even better, because then they can just earn money and let the assets keep growing. Good for them. But there's people out there who frankly can't afford to retire, and then they think that they need to retire. Like, well, I'm 65, I'm 67, I'm 70, I'm 72. I can't, or even younger. They say, "Oh, I'm 60, I can't be working anymore. I need to retire." Who said you need to retire? Who said that? That was some American, like some fictitious American dream, that the boomers came up with, or I don't even know who it was. I'm a millennial. The boomers came up with this American dream where you're going to have this nice house for cheap costs, and then you're going to have your own broad at home, working at home, or not working, but keeping the house, and you got the kids running around. You got a good job, single income, and you can, save a little bit, and then your pension and your Social Security covers the rest, and you can retire. Those days are gone. Okay, in this economy, like unless you're making like 50% more than the standard cost of living in your area, or more, and you don't have kids, or at least you don't have a lot of kids. Okay, unless you're in that situation, those days are gone. And also, we're living a long time. I'm digressing quite a bit, but that's a whole nother topic. But you get what you save for, okay? And if you didn't save that much, and you didn't do the math, and you didn't do the research to find out what you need to have in place to replace your income, then whose fault is it? What makes you think that you need to retire? I mean, you don't have to retire. Just keep on working. Also, retirement's not in the Bible, by the way. Retirement. I don't see anything in the Bible about retirement, like condoning retirement. So just, I mean, I don't. I think it's a sin. I think it's a sin. I'm just going to say it. I think retirement is a sin. But there's nothing in the Bible that condones retirement. So just keep on working. Also, we're living a long time. My grandparents are 92 years old and they're not going anywhere. And we've got a family friend who's 98. Christmas this past year, she was 98 years old. She ain't going nowhere. So if you're 70 years old, think about this. You got 25 more years. That's like a teenager, a 15-year-old talking about, "Oh, in 25 years, I'm going to be 40." A lot can happen between age 15 and 40. That's 25 years. That's the rest of high school, prom, college, getting married, buying a house, having kids, getting into college debt, maybe a little credit card debt, screwing around at the club. Okay. A lot can happen. Hopefully not, but getting divorced, finding a second spouse. Okay. A lot can happen between 15 and 40. That's 25 years. If you're 70, 25 years later, you're going to be 95. What are you doing about it? So, anyway, um, to circle it back to an insurance policy, this was more about mindset, but to circle it back to an insurance policy, specifically life insurance, this is the only kind of insurance that protects against something that absolutely will happen. All the other insurances out there, they only protect against things that might happen. Health insurance, you might never get sick in your whole life. Or, well, you might never get sick enough to need the health insurance, okay? Beyond just like a regular checkup, things like that. You might never need prescriptions or insurance to fill prescriptions. You might never get into a car accident. You might never need to file a claim on your homeowner's insurance. You will die at some point. So going cheap on your life insurance, you're basically saying to your survivors, hey guys, I wanted to spend the least amount of money possible to make sure my last paycheck is going to be there. And to make sure that y'all be okay when I'm gone forever, and when I'm not there to help you sort any of that stuff out. I wanted to put in the least amount of work on that, or least amount of money into that endeavor as possible. So good luck. And that time will absolutely come. So it might be wise to make sure you're getting the best plan possible for the sake of your survivors.